Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Obviously, the current state of Warzone 2 is, well, not optimal to say the least. Obviously, the game is sort of struggling off the rip and really has been since launch. We're now, a little bit removed from launch. We've seen a couple of pretty major updates. We have some other larger ones coming up here soon with Season 2 that are hopefully going to turn things around. But as it stands right now, Warzone 2 is kind of trending downwards. It's on this downhill descent and it's kind of snowballing out of control in a not so great way. And I wanted to talk about what's led up to this, why it is, and what could end up fixing this, and I guess in theory, quote unquote, saving Warzone, if you will. So, going into Warzone 2, from the initial reveal for it back at Call of Duty Next, there was already a good amount of concern because while they were innovating in certain ways, if you want to use the word innovating like that, while they were changing things in certain ways, I think is a more appropriate and accurate term, it was things that really made Warzone stand out from all the other battle royales on the market. Obviously, no game is going to stand out unless it has certain unique properties, and a lot of what Warzone did well was its unique properties, the loadouts, the gulag, resurgence and rebirth and all that stuff. And then they revealed Warzone 2 and they completely changed or removed a lot of that. And it seemed like it was a lot of change for the sake of change. They didn't just want to redo Warzone 1, which is, I don't think, what anybody wanted. But I think a lot of people heard Warzone 2.0 and envisioned an upgraded version of Warzone, not a completely changed version of Warzone, right? So, like I said, there was already a lot of concern going into launch about Warzone 2, but a lot of that concern was voiced after the reveal, and we were hoping for some significant changes for launch based off what we saw revealed at Next and throughout other stuff as well. And there were some changes, to be fair, but not ridiculously drastic ones. And the thing is here, Warzone 2 already had a huge barrier going into it because Warzone 1 obviously had so much hype because it was new and fresh and never done before for Call of Duty, at least in the scale that Warzone was doing it. Yes, Blackout was a battle royale, so Warzone's not the first COD BR, but it was taking a lot of different steps, and so there was a lot of hype for it, right? Warzone 2, though, is not that new and fresh thing. It is a game that we've somewhat already experienced for several years, with Warzone 1 already just changed again for the sake of change. So it already had this large barrier going in that was probably going to, not allow it to be as crazy popular as Warzone 1 already. But now that we've had the game out for a bit, we've seen certain updates change some pretty significant things, like some loadouts, they've fixed perks, they've done stuff like that. The player count on this game is still dropping, at least the player count that we can see. Now, here's the thing. This is obviously a very common topic right now in the community. Oh, the Warzone player count, it's lost, this much percentage of its player base since launch. And I want to focus on these numbers, but you also have to remember, the only player count numbers that we're seeing right now are from Steam exclusively as a platform. We do not have the player count numbers for Battle.net, for Xbox, for PlayStation. And keep in mind, we already know that console players make up the majority of the player base by a large margin, according to Call of Duty and the devs themselves. So while we do have a player base number here, it's representing one and likely the smaller of the two PC player bases, and it's far from being the full story. But that said, where one thing is trending a certain way, you can imagine it's probably trending a similar way, at least to a certain extent, on the other platforms as well. So Charlie Intel recently posted a tweet saying, "We've heard from multiple people," and I'm assuming this is various inside sources and then also the public information, that Warzone 2's player count dropped over the break at a higher rate than expected, which is alarming. Unclear what it all means for what will change at this point. Hope we get some good updates soon. And Charles, I'm right there with you. I hope we get some good updates soon. And now focusing on these Steam player count numbers, as I mentioned, basically MW2 has been visible on Steam since day one, where it was making crazy waves, right? But now its player count is dropping. Currently, as I'm recording this video, there's about 140,000 players online, which in comparison to where it was before is going down. You can actually see the last 30-day trend for MW2 is basically a graph that shows the very clear update for Season 1 Reloaded, but then just a downward descent in terms of a player count every single day. You can also look at the month-to-month stats on this as well, where in October, obviously the game was not, fully out for the majority of the month, so that's kind of a stat that doesn't mean too much here. But then November, the game's fully out. It's its first full month. We saw the release of Warzone 2. The average player count was 223,000. Then just a month later, they dropped a ton, the average player count in December being 178,000. Then throughout the last 30 days, obviously we're only a bit here in January, so we don't have the full month stats, but we're down even more, 145,000 average players. So it is trending downward. And to some extent, this initial spike of players when the new game drops and then that slow downfall afterwards is normal. Every game has that huge, amount of players jumping on right as it launches to get a taste of what's new. And then they, either like it or don't. And some players naturally are going to fall off. That's pretty standard. But this is a Call of Duty game. This is a live action game. This is far from their first rodeo, and they're seeing more drop-offs than expected according to what Charlie Intel has heard. So now I want to focus on the why and the how you can actually fix this and hopefully turn things around. As we get into this conversation, just a reminder, if you're new here, every single day, I got you covered with all things going on in Call of Duty. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on your post notifications. That way, once we do finally see some significant updates that hopefully improve the state of Warzone and also MW2 as well, you can be up to date with all the latest intel right as it is coming out. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, although it is a bit different from some of the usual content here, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. Let's try and aim for 2,000 likes on this one. Now, the why. When it comes down to it, I really feel like there's three main things you can look at for what's going on with Warzone 2 and why it is in this sort of downward descent, right? The lack of stability, the lack of content, and then, in my opinion, the most important, the lack of communication. Yes, Raven does appear to be a bit more in charge here with Warzone in recent times, but we know for a fact IW was the lead on Warzone 2, at least for the first bit, and obviously they were the main designers behind it as well. And IW's communication has been pretty lackluster so far. At first, they were talking pretty frequently about some updates right as MW2 launched. Even right as Warzone 2 launched, we were seeing some more frequent tweets and posts about stuff. But then it fell off hard, and Raven was kind of right there with them. Really, the only time that we've had really good communication from the studios is right after both games launched, and then just after Season 1 Reloaded and just before the holiday break. They were really good for like a week there, tons of frequent updates, tons of communication and transparency. Other than that, though, it's been a lot of radio silence. And even if the game's not seeing constant updates and constant changes, that doesn't mean that you have to be silent on social media. You can always talk about what's coming up next, what you are aware of, and they do that to a certain extent on the Trello, but it's very inconsistent. One week we see a ton of updates, the next week we see like nothing, right? So the consistency of communication and the lack of communication so far is very underwhelming. Then you look at the content, and when a new game launches, yes, there is a lot of content that's just fresh because it's a new game, right? But then over the course of the past couple of updates, we really haven't seen many changes in Warzone 2. In fact, we've seen more things removed, it seems like, than new things added. We're constantly seeing third person removed or unhinged removed. For what? The standard Battle Royale playlist where we have solos, duos, trios, quads. Obviously, there's no resurgence yet. Yes, that is leaked for, future updates, potentially Season 2 Reloaded sometime around there. But with the way that Warzone 2 plays, obviously it's not going to be the same feeling as Resurgence back on Rebirth and Fortune's Keep. There's also, just within the game, not much to do in terms of a grind factor. Obviously, we're missing stats, which I think is still totally unacceptable for a COD that's this far along. Like, it's not our first rodeo. Stats are so basic. There's not a ton of challenges. There's not blueprints to go after like crazy outside of DMZ. So there is a certain lack of content within Warzone itself. Also, another huge one, lack of stability. Players just literally not being able to play the game because it's crashing, you're at ridiculous pings. There was the whole shadow ban glitch going on there for a bit. Whenever you got 10 kills, you could potentially get kicked out for like a week or however long the shadow ban wanted to last, right? So the stability factors, again, on a game that is not their first rodeo, have been pretty embarrassing as well, I would say. When the game can't even function, how are you supposed to be able to consistently play it? How are you supposed to want to be able to play the game when it doesn't even work right from the get-go, right? Like, if I'm crashing on the menu, why do I want to jump into a game and then, lose all my stuff in DMZ or miss out on a nuke attempt because my squad crashes and then we got to reset? There's a lot of problems going on there as well. So it's not just one specific thing that's causing Warzone 2 to lose players right now. It is collectively a lot of different issues, I would say. And that said, season 2 is coming up here on February 1st. The season 1, length here has been a little bit longer than usual when it comes to seasons in general. I think this is like a 10-week season. Usually it's about an 8-week season. So they've had some extra time to prepare for season 2, although they did have the holiday break in the middle of the season. So there's that as well. But I'm expecting season 2 to be a make it or break it for a lot of players here when it comes to Warzone, because at this point it is starting to get to the, question of, how is this still a problem? Why is this still a problem? It's Call of Duty. They're a AAA studio. They have infinite resources, if you will, when it comes to what they want to create here. So certain things at a certain point shouldn't be excused anymore, right? So I'm expecting a lot for season 2. I want to keep, level expectations and not build something that's like overhyped, but at the same time, it is COD. We need significant updates. Clearly, they are aware of the player counts dropping, and that is unbiased data. Clearly, people are not happy. Obviously, certain players love the changes because it's more of a standard battle royale. Certain players don't like it because it's not like Warzone 1. But when the player counts are dropping, they're not meeting expectations, that's pretty universally accepted as, okay, we've got to change something. So hopefully we see those significant game-changing updates soon. As we get any intel on them, I'm gonna be sure to keep you guys updated with the latest news and intel, so feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. Also, if you guys enjoyed this one, let me know by dropping a like on the video itself, would be seriously appreciated. But that's gonna do it for today. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.